Hey. Wait. Down here. Hey. Hi. Hi. Today I'm going to talk to you about this workout we filmed with Joe. It's kind of intense, pretty cool. On my boosted board. Check it out. I wanted 3 things on this trip. I wanted to interview Joe and hear his thoughts on how training is going so far and what he thinks training is going to be like the next 4 months. I also wanted to get a nice hard workout with the boosted board or some sort of moving device, getting him running really intensely. Finally, an interview with his wife, Maddie, and her perception of his running and what she thinks was gonna happen in the race. I look like a psychopath right now, just like talking to no one. Hi, Carrie! Look up. We're filming something. I don't need a vanilla latte. Before I get put on Influencers in the Wild, I'm gonna go back inside and do the rest of the video in there. I hate doing this outside. Now, I know I'm fast, but I can't run and film Joe at the same time.
Do you think I could beat Eric in a race at the CIM if he was running it? I mean, I feel like I know the answer.
So on past trips to New York and Tennessee, we brought my Super 73 with 2 people on it. Pretty awkward, not a lot of space. I didn't want to pack it this time for this trip. It was a short little trip to Franklin, so I packed a Stealth boosted board instead. So for that one thing that we wanted, and this is what I'm breaking down today, is that workout, that hard workout. We were going to go to a track that Joe normally goes to, really cool looking. It's red, it's a vibe. And we got there and it was closed.
Super lame, because this is the only public track I know of.
Soccer practice for junior high soccer team. I don't know. I also brought rollerblades on the trip, but in New York when we went to a track, it was super hard to rollerblade on the track. It was like you were sinking into the rubber surface. So a boosted board with a motor and a remote felt a lot better. I know a lot of people use one wheels, but I've never done that. I ain't no Jesse Driftwood. But because it was on a track and I was gonna be using a boosted board, I wanted to bring my easy rig to hold the camera for me. Definitely going with the new C70, my favorite go-to camera when I'm shooting anything for the doc. And I was gonna start out with the 15 to 35, which has been my go-to lens for that camera as well, if you've seen any of the BTS on any of the C70 stuff I've been making this year so far. Now the downside to using the boosted instead of a one wheel, I know like Peter and Jesse and all them, and even Danny Gebertz use a one wheel and have made videos about using one wheel in filming. I don't feel like a lot of people have done that in a cinematic situation with a boosted board. And I think it's because it takes one of your hands. You have to have the remote controller in one hand, but that's why I had the easy rig. So I didn't really have to hold onto the camera. I could kind of just tuck it into my armpit and rely on the autofocus that the C70 has, which ended up being really awesome. I was on setting 3 out of 5 on the boosted stealth, so I wouldn't just be ripping past Joe all the time. Actually, top speed was pretty awesome for the pace he was going on this hard workout, running a 540 mile pace. So since the track was closed, we had to figure out another plan. We ended up settling on a park where we had done footage previously back in March, where consequently, we shot with boosted boards back then too. But on the way, Joe remembered that there's an abandoned airfield really close to there that a lot of people use for cycling and running, and it was a vibe.
Baby, please, don't play me for a fool. 'Cause I'm just not that baby. And you know it's against the rules.
You might be thinking, all the planning of gear and all the planning for the trips and all the things that we have to think about with post and, data management, all that stuff. Yes, all that stuff is going on and my team is helping me out with that, all the folks at Creative Club. But honestly, what keeps me going, gets me stoked is making little edits and cuts with different music, with different genres, because we have a whole playlist going for the documentary so far to fuel the inspiration and to compile so that when we get to post and have to edit something that's 90 minutes or more, we have a multitude of different genres, whether it be vintage or hip hop or super hype or classical. And all of that is on MusicBed, my favorite place for all music. And they're sponsoring today's video. And yeah, I wouldn't trust any other place to have music for the film and to build a playlist for inspiration as we get to the edit. So there's already a bunch of stuff that I have in there that's getting me really excited. I already feel like there'll be perfect placeholders for specific parts of the doc, race day, different training sessions, different interviews. If you're at all interested in music licensing and getting awesome music for your films, check out the link in the description. All caps Eric Floberg 22, 1 free month if you purchase any annual subscription. Thanks, Music Bed. So as he was doing warm-ups and running a lot slower, I used that time to just kind of practice getting used to the boosted board and shooting with the 15 to 35. And I came to realize that this location was incredible for the boosted board because I really had nothing in my way. There were very few people on the abandoned track, and I could kind of just do whatever I wanted without looking. Might have been a little dangerous, but ended up working out in my favor. The IS image stabilization on the 15 to 35 got kind of wonky from time to time, which I didn't really see in camera until I actually reviewed the footage on a computer. So I'm really happy that halfway through, I switched from that 15 to 35 after I got a multitude of different shots and even like fun twisting the camera as I approached Joe with the boosted board. I switched to the 50mm f1.2, the RF lens. Obsessed with it. It doesn't have image stabilization in it. Like I said, I just kind of tucked it into my armpit with that easy rig, and it nestled in there quite nicely. With the smoothness of the boosted board, I was able to get some really cool stuff with that lens. The amazing thing about the C70 on the fly is I don't have to deal with any variable NDs while I'm shooting. All of the NDs are internal on the camera. So I opened up the lens all the way to f1.2 to get that super dreamy look of fall off and all that bokeh behind Joe while he ran. Now, with any of the inconsistencies in the image stabilization in the 15 to 35 or any of the bounciness in the 50mm, one of the saving graces of the dreaded software Adobe Premiere Pro is that it has amazing warp stabilization, was able to save plenty of these clips, make them look super smooth when it's applied. And shout out to Bean for droning the whole time. He crushed it with all this BTS of me on the boosted board and some awesome solo shots of Joe for the doc. And normally people aren't going to finish out a video like this with something sentimental or philosophical. Colin and Samir, Mr. Beast, are going to tell me that I have to keep doing things that are going to retain my viewers, have my retention rate soar through the end of the video. And getting all sentimental and philosophical at the end won't do that. But if you're interested in how to run a sustainable business and how I got in the situation in the first place of shooting this documentary and working with someone like Joe, maybe stick around and listen. I keep having to reckon with myself of how I got here in the midst of shooting a feature-length documentary. And I think this past trip, this short 3-day trip, was kind of a synopsis of what the whole philosophy of the whole thing so far has been. It's been about intentionality. Going in, this past trip was amazing, having 3 specific things I needed. Not too much to overwhelm myself, but more than enough time in 3 days to capture 3 things that I wanted for the film. It's been, me being intentional with my running and going and running the New York City Marathon and meeting Joe in real life. And that being the inspiration for doing this whole documentary, me throwing out the idea and Joe saying yes, and us both kind of dreaming and running with the idea of making it into a movie. And on top of that, just continuing to bring value, continuing to shoot for Joe and his own personal things, potentially working on commercial work and stuff with him in the future and making YouTube videos for him. It's all very intentional. And I think if you lead with that kind of intentionality in your own business and your own creative endeavors, you'll find that people want to work with you, especially if you're being super intentional with the stuff that you make, and that it's good, and that it has intention, and it has emotion, and it looks good, and it sounds good. But more than anything, it's just about treating people well and trying to connect with people on a human level and a relational level. And with that, none of this would be possible at all. This video right now, that trip last week, any trip we've gone on so far, or this documentary at all without the community that's around me. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk on the couch. Like I said, I'm fast, but I don't know if I'll ever be as fast as IOE. One day, Joseph. One day. He keeps thinking we're the same age. We're not the same age. He's an old man.